On September 15th, Nikon announced two very important lenses. They announced the 50mm f1.2s and they announced the 14-24 f2.8s. As a landscape photographer and the specs that I saw from the 14-24, it made me really excited. And that's exactly what I'm going over in this video. What's up guys, of Project Photography back with another video, and today I just want to say how excited I am about this 14-24. I was looking at the specs and it blew me away. You know, when I initially saw that they're coming out with the 14-24, I didn't think too much about it, if I'm being quite honest. I thought, all right, it's just gonna be another huge, unpractical 14-24 like they did with the F-mount version that they came out with about 15 years ago and they never updated since. I just thought it was gonna be another one of those, but I was pleasantly surprised by the specs and the features that it had. So let's jump right into the specs that it has. And to start off, it's obviously a 14-24mm f2.8 for the Nikon Z mount. It weighs in about 650 grams, has 16 elements inside of it. It's a lot of elements, but I think it's still going to perform extremely well. Has a dedicated control ring like the 24-70 and the 70-200 and the 58.95 Noct. Has a front LCD display, has a dedicated function button, has a stepper motor, so when you're autofocusing for video especially, it stays nice and quiet. It is effective at suppressing sagittal coma flare. So what does that mean? It just means that you're gonna get really nice pointy sun stars, and it's gonna be priced at $2,399. So that's actually a pretty good price for a lens like this. It's pretty comparable to what Sony and Canon have offered. And this right here is probably my most favorite spec. It can take 112mm filters. That is insane. So let's talk about that first. 112mm filters. Now you're probably thinking, like, Zach, how practical is that? And my answer is, it's way more practical than having square filters. Now, in no way, shape, or form am I dismissing the use of square filters. Me personally, I think square filters are great. I think it just depends what your style of photography is and what you're gonna use it for. But for me, I wanna be carrying as lightweight as possible, and that's just a really big, clumsy system. And for me personally, I find that circular filters are much better for what I need. So when you look at this lens and you think, okay, what other 14mm lens can take circular filters? And the answer to that is none. There is no other lens out there that is a 14mm lens that can take circular filters. And the fact that this can even take a filter is mind-blowing to me. Now you're probably looking at this and thinking, you know, what companies even make 112mm filters? And the question to that is only B+W and Tokina, and I'm not sure the quality of Tokina, but B+W does not have that great of a selection. They only have 2-stop ND filters. From what I've seen, Nikon is apparently going to be making their own filters. They announced two different filters. They announced a circular polarizer and a neutral color filter. Now, I'm not sure what the neutral color filter means. I have no clue what that implies, but here's the thing. Nikon is going to be making their own filter specifically for this lens. So what does that mean? We're going to be getting other filters like better ND filters possibly, and maybe UV filters. I don't know if anyone would really want to use a UV filter on that kind of lens. But the fact is, Nikon is going to be supplying us with incredible 112mm filters, and hopefully they perform great because there's no other manufacturer really making 112mm filter thread sizes. So just because of that fact specifically, this lens has a huge advantage over the 14-24 that was originally released, because that lens had a bulbous front element. So what that meant is that you can't put circular filters on there. You can only put square filters with special filter holders and things like that. So this lens, in terms of practicality for landscape photography, jumps way up. You can use it for way more stuff, and it's just much more of a practical tool, which I really love. And again, I just want to reiterate how incredible having a 14mm lens with a filter thread is. No other company is doing that. No other company has been able to create a 14mm lens with a filter thread on it. That's absolutely insane to me. Granted, the only way that you can actually put filters on this is with the supplied lens hood. But from what I've seen, the lens hood looks great. Now, I'm not sure if you can actually just put the filter on the supply lens hood and then take the lens hood off and the filter is going to be attached to it. I'm not sure how it works specifically, but if that's the case, that would make it super practical, super useful, because what you could do is just screw on the filter onto the lens hood, acquire focus, and then screw the lens hood onto the lens. And that is amazing to me. That just makes it so much easier in terms of workflow, in terms of how easy it is to use. And in terms of practicality, this lens right off the bat, just looking at that one spec, makes it look really good. So let's jump over to the next part that got me really excited, and it deals with the weight and size. This lens is tiny. I was looking at the videos and I was looking at the specs and things like that, and this lens is really small. It is 650 grams. That makes it 33% lighter than the original 14-24, which weighed in at 972 grams. So that's really significant in and of itself, because as a landscape photographer, I don't want to be carrying around really heavy gear. And that 14-24 originally was pretty heavy. It weighed as much as a DSLR. You know, and this lens actually weighs as much as the Z6. The Z6 weighs in at 667 grams. This at 650 grams makes it so useful. I don't mind carrying that around. I think that'd be really great for a lot of people. And you know, weight is everything when it comes to landscape photography. As I've iterated so many times in other videos, you know, you're been carrying all this gear on your back. And on long hikes, if you're hiking for 10, 20 miles, even 6 miles, you know, that weight can add up. And being able to carry as light as possible is incredible. And this lens is really light, makes it more practical, way easier to carry around, way easier to just throw in your backpack. And I'm really excited about the weight. But one thing I do want to point out is how is it compared to a 14-30 that is originally released by Nikon, like when the Z series first came out. Compared to the 14-24, this lens is lighter significantly. I don't know, I want to say too significantly, but 485 grams for the 14-30 versus 650 grams for the 14-24 f2.8. So is that a significant deal to most people? Not really, but for me personally, you know, having the lightest gear possible is absolutely crucial. So it's up to you what you want to use, but it's all personal preference at that point. So this next spec I want to talk about is actually the display. Now, I was watching Jared Poland's video. He's like, oh, what do people even use a display for? And you know, for the 70-200, you might not use it as much, but for the 24-70, I actually use it quite a bit. I use a distance scale to check my focus and things like that. And I use it sometimes for aperture, things like that. But you know, when it comes down to landscape photography, actually, the little display on top of it is super important. I don't think I can stress how important this is, because first of all, when I'm shooting landscape photography, and this is the main gripe I actually have about the 14-30 that I wish it had, I really wish it did have the display, because then when I'm checking my focus, I can see exactly where I'm focusing in on. And with this, I can't do that because it just doesn't have that. So when I'm guessing where my focus is, I kind of have to guess. I don't really have a for sure way of knowing where exactly I'm focused. So with this LCD, it makes landscape photography super easy. Well, it's not super easy, but it makes it easier than without it. For astrophotography, that is actually so important, because most of the time you're not even be able to know where exactly you're focused at, and you can't see like what stars you're focused on, things like that. So having that distance scale lets you know where you're focused, what ballpark you're in. And it's really important for landscape photography especially. So I'm actually really excited about the LCD specifically. I think that's absolutely incredible, and I'm really glad they kept it in here. Obviously they would, because it's part of the holy trinity of the Z series. But let's go on to the next part, and you know, this is probably a story similar across the board when it comes to Z series lenses. It's the fact that this lens is insanely sharp. I'll throw up the MTF charts right here. It didn't say what focal length is what on the MTF charts, but I'm assuming this one is the 14mm MTF chart, and I'm assuming this one is a 24mm MTF chart. I'm not too sure, but you know what? Even if you mix match it either way, this lens is insanely sharp. When you look at the corners and when you look at the center of the frame, this lens is really sharp. And I'm assuming when you stop it down, obviously, because this MTF chart is at 2.8. And that's a testament to how great this lens is. But as I was saying, when you stop it down, those corners are gonna get sharper. You know, the center is gonna get sharper. I don't know how much sharper you can get than what these MTF charts prove, but this lens is going to prove to be an insanely sharp lens, and I'm super excited to see what kind of images it produces. And you know, the Z series lens is just a testament to how incredible the optical performance is. You know, I think a lot of people were complaining that, oh, we have a bigger mount, so why don't they have more faster glass? But when I was thinking about and looking and using these Z series lenses, you know, that bigger mount doesn't just mean that you have faster lenses. It also means that you have sharper, optically superior lenses. If you compare the Z series lenses versus the F mount lenses, you know, the main thing that stands out is just the sharpness, the overall quality of the lenses when it comes to optical performance, because these lenses perform insanely well. And the 14-24, and I have no doubt in my mind, is going to be performing at the same standard as these Z series lenses. It's absolutely incredible what they've been able to do. And I'm just super blown away by this lens, guys. I don't know if I can, you know, if I can express how excited I am about this lens, because originally I was like, oh, another 14-24, you know, it's gonna have a bulbous front element, it's gonna be huge. It's not gonna be that practical to use for landscape photography specifically. But when they were showing the specs and what it could do, I was just mind blown, because no other 14mm can have a filter thread. This lens is really lightweight for a 14-24. It only weighs in at 650 grams. And you know what? I'm really excited for this lens. And now when thinking about, you know, its closest competition, which is the 14-24, you know, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a 14-24 f4 or a 14-24 f2.8? And for me personally, I would probably be sticking with the 14-24, and the main reason is cost, you know, because this lens is really expensive, guys. It's $2,400 essentially, and I know that's standard for a 14-24, but for me personally, the 14-30 does exactly what I need. And I actually really like using it on the Z50 specifically, because it gives me a 21-45, which is essentially a 20-50. But you know what? For a lot of photographers, this 14-24 is going to have superior benefits over the 14-30. And I can see this definitely being used in event photography, photojournalism, and especially for landscape photography, astrophotography. And you know, that extra stop makes a huge difference when exploring those other niches of photography. For astrophotography specifically, definitely would rather have a 14-24 f2.8 over an f4 lens. And you know, this lens is just very practical. I think that's one thing I really want to drive home, is that this lens is going to be extremely practical for a lot of photography, especially with that nice 2.8 aperture. And a 14-24 is a great focal length, and I'm just really excited. Eventually I actually do want to get my hands on this lens, because it just looks insane, and everything that it promises is what I'd want in a landscape photography lens. And I'm not dissing this lens when I say that I'd rather have my 14-30 over it. It's just me personally, where I am right now, my photography career. I think the 14-30 does a lot what I need to do, but eventually I kind of do want to pick up this lens, not going to lie, because it looks incredible. Now, one thing I do want to address in Jared Poland's video, where he talked about, you know, why couldn't Nikon make this a 12-24 instead of just a 14-24? Now, this lens would be much bigger. It would not allow different filters, like a screw-on filter. It'd be more expensive, way heavier, and just, I don't think Nikon was trying to go for that. I think their point was to be able to make a 14-24 that was practical in use and fit everyone's needs perfectly. You know, because if you look at how big that lens is, a 12-24 a Sony, and how expensive it is, the fact that it doesn't take front filter threads makes it less practical, I think, than shaving off that extra 2mm. So I really am happy about this lens. I have not had a chance to use it, I really want to. I'm just really excited for this lens, and this fills a huge gap in the Nikon Z system. You know, it completes the holy trinity. It adds more lenses to the lineup, and even if you just look at, you know, what this lens is able to do in terms of practicality and for landscape photography, you know, this lens is shaping up to be absolutely incredible, and I want to use it so badly. So let me know what you guys think of this lens and the 50mm f1.2. These are two insane lenses. Nikon dropped two bombs on us, a 50mm f1.2 and a 14-24 f2.8. These are going to be insane lenses, and I can't wait to use them if I get a chance to use them. So let me know what you guys think about these two lenses. Let me know what you guys think about what Nikon did. I'm really impressed, as you guys can tell. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. Comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.